Hey, I'm the Rock Doc, and
Hi, I'm Gabe.
this is Cuddles. If you're hearing a lot of purring on the microphone, I don't know how bad it's going to be picked up. She's literally purring right in front of the microphone, so hopefully it's not deafening. Also, it's daylight savings time in an hour, so if we look all bedraggled and wired, that's why we hate daylight savings time.
Yeah,
Hate it. I can't even tell you how much we hate it. So, I
it's
hate
a
to use
blight
that.
on society.
It is. That could be a whole subject of its own, actually.
Yeah,
But we thought we would talk about. We hate I mean, quote, pander. But everybody's talking about it anyway, so we thought we'd talk kind of about current events.
yeah.
So, you
Or at
know,
least the concept of current events.
right, yeah. I mean, everyone I know is so glued to their phones and their media in every way, social media, YouTube, TikTok, obsessed with what's going on in the world right now. They can't even look up. There was that movie Don't Look Up. I haven't seen it yet, but everyone's saying it's so good. That's kind of what we wanted to discuss more than the actual events, but what you can do with what's going on to keep yourself healthy, keep the anxiety down, keep a healthy outlook on it instead of drawing more inward and closer, closing up. It's like instead of going out where everyone's going inward, so we wanted to discuss some of those things. So basically, I think we are going to title this World War III and You. Is it World War III? That's the big question I think everybody's asking. What do you think?
I don't know. I think that's the important thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think all signs are pointing that it is we've got definitely more countries at war right now than I think at
Yeah,
any time in history. And and of course, we try to keep our videos timely so you could watch them at any time and they'd be relevant. So this is going to date us, but with the things going on in Russia and Ukraine and now Iraq and Iran and everywhere, you know.
yeah,
So the thing is, the general populace is starting to say World War III. So we'll just use that as a frame reference. I think most common people are accepting that we either are in World War III or about to be in World War III, something like that. So,
yeah.
um,
Well, another thing too is hopefully YouTube doesn't mess with this video just because we used the word war.
yeah, yeah, we don't know what's going to be censored. So, of course, you can find us on Patreon. We were on Rumble. I have to tell you why we pulled it off Rumble. I didn't use Rumble much, and I happened to pull up a video a friend sent me. It was about a minute and a half long, and there was, I believe, it was somewhere between 5 and 8 commercial breaks. Like, literally, it was like, hello, commercial, and commercial. Why is commercial? And I was like, I will not put our viewers through that.
Yeah,
Especially, we're not monetized at this point. I doubt that video was monetized. That's ridiculous. So, Brighteon no longer up. So we've lost some of our channels. So at this point, we're on YouTube and Patreon.
and Patreon's just a mirror of YouTube.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. So and of course we post our videos on Facebook as well. So if we find some other medias, we certainly will explore that. But for right now, that's where you can find us. So if there's an issue, we'll try to make a note on Facebook or somewhere that the video's been edited or taken down or something. But
yeah. But I think the video we're making tonight is mostly going to be about a lot of different subjects that are generally kind of connected. But for the most part, the idea of is it World War III, I think that got us thinking because it most certainly seems to be, but the problem is no one really understands what the war is even about yet.
mm-hmm.
And everyone has their idea about it. And personally, I don't have a clue. And I think that's fine because it seems like everyone who thinks they do know what's going on are still wrong.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a it well how do I explain this? The war is there's more going on than just a very simple thing. You can't just say these are the villains, these are the good guys. It's plain as day.
Yeah.
It's such a convoluted thing that's happening that no one could know the truth of it. And I think everyone's so self assured that they know what's going on that it's actually kind of dangerous. Like, but I think a lot of people in the media are kind of going, yeah, Russia's the bad guys, Ukraine are the good guys. We need to fight against Russia. It's like we don't know enough about this war to make such a definitive statement. It could be more of a gray area, or both of them are wrong, or it was a misunderstanding. Who knows?
It's kind of like when the Middle East went to war. We just chose a side based on our financial interests, and I believe that's where we are now. But
Not only that, but the government has financial interests, whereas the people have a personal bias against Russia.
yeah,
And I think that, you know, people always for years now going war is bad. Don't to pull out of these wars and whatnot. But now that Russia's the supposed instigator, I don't actually know if it is or not. But people are if taking that stance because there's been a bias against Russia for the longest time.
mm-hmm.
They've been our enemies for the longest time, so it makes sense. I'm not even going to say that they're in the rights or anything like that, but it just makes sense. But I think people are suddenly going, forget everything I said about peace. This is our chance to get rid of Russia. Let's take it.
Yeah.
And it's like, but we don't actually know what's going on enough to really make it such a bold statement that Russia is the bad guys.
Right, but yet they're paying a price no matter what. We're not talking about Russia, the government, Russia, the people.
Yeah.
No more McDonald's. Their Maersk is stopping shipping, and that's those big shipping containers you always see Maersk. But that's their food, clothing, medicine. So the people of Russia are going to suffer. And I understand if you have a government that's, say, a dictatorship or something, sometimes the people suffer. But it's social media that's causing this to happen because we're so obsessed with Ukraine, Russia, Russia. Let's hurt the Russians. Throw out the Russian vodka, which I've asked people is less than 10% of the alcohol sales. You're actually only hurting your local liquor store by throwing that out, taking money away from your friends and neighbors. So that's kind of crazy too.
Yeah.
But it's more what bothered us, I think, the most is, and we're, I've been involved in,
not to mention too, prejudice against Russian people. There could be, as it always happens every war, people in America who are Russian are now going to be seen as enemies, even though they're your neighbors. They have nothing to do with this war.
Yeah.
That's always how it happens because people are so biased against the nation and its people rather than the conflict more so.
Yeah, exactly. So we, and I guess I'm pretty good at spotting propaganda. I studied many things. I was in Germany as a child before the wall fell. Saw communism firsthand. I think people that have come, like first generation immigrants who've escaped from communism, are very sensitive to this. But this is propaganda, plain and simple. That's a word I know everyone's like to throws around today, but it's propaganda. But what we mean by that is it's a narrative meant to bend your thinking in a certain way, and you may not, and we don't know at this point what that is they're trying to bend our thinking towards. We just can see people are being manipulated.
Well, another thing too is people tend to expect propaganda to be obvious, like join the army. They're like, "Oh, you want me to join the army, huh?" They think that's propaganda. Propaganda nowadays is so insidious. You just don't know that it's actually affecting you because it's not saying you should do this. It's, hey, what do you think about this? You go, oh, I don't know. So, well, you gotta pick a side, right? Stuff like that. And it's like, it can also feel good too. A lot of people are like, this sounds really good. We should do this or whatever, and don't realize that they're being manipulated. Yeah. For instance, there was a story coming out of Ukraine of some guy who's been like shooting down fighter jets from Russia.
Yeah.
And that was recently discovered to be a false. It was not a real story whatsoever.
Almost everything that's come out in the media has been proven false, and that's what's scary. And
I've heard people go, it may be false, but it's uplifting and it helps people who are suffering through the war to go like, somebody could be a hero like that. It's inspiring, as they say.
But I had noticed within the first week of this happening, and of course, Americans are raised in the John McClane, Rambo, lone wolf type. They know that's an American hero stereotype. So I had noticed in the first week, he's talking about the Wolf of Ukraine. They had all these stories coming out of these lone wolf type heroes, and they were very fantastical. And when you're involved in Hollywood and you've spent so much time studying that, you knew it was stories and narratives being written. And so when they found out some of these were made by gaming systems, graphic artists, our point is not to point out one side or the other, that Ukraine is bad, Russia's bad. We have no opinion on that at this point. No one should. No one knows the truth.
Yeah, like for
You know.
instance, who are you can say definitively what's even happening in Ukraine?
Mm-hmm.
You aren't there. You know what I mean? But getting back to my point was that the story, the Wolf of Ukraine shooting down fighter jets, everyone's realized that it's fake, but people still think it's a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
and so they still allowed it because it feels good. There's nothing outwardly wrong about that, which is why it's a much more clear proof of propaganda
Mm-hmm.
because it's not obvious. The idea is that the story gets you riled up for a specific side. Let's say, for instance, the Ukrainians and Russians were working together against a common enemy, and we didn't know this. But by having this story there, because it sounds so good, everyone's spreading it, even if they know it's fake. It reframes how you perceive the war to be Ukrainians fighting back an overwhelming force of power from Russia.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even know if there's fighter jets being flown around. There's rumors of that, but no definitive proof that we can find. And so it puts you in a state of mind that, hey, there are people fighting against Russia and Ukraine, and they're actually fighting back, and we need to join forces with the Ukrainians to fight back against the Russians. And therefore, you've already picked a side in a battle that you know nothing about, which means that anyone in support of the Ukrainians, you're going to support too, including people who are just trying to make bank off this. If a corporation goes, we are supporting Ukrainians by doing this, or we are fighting back against the Russians by stopping supply routes to Russia or something like that, you're being supported that, unknowingly helping them just do like some sort of weird business thing or power move that they were just using this war for, because they reframed your perspective on the war to what they want you to think rather than what's actually happening.
Yeah, and you have to realize at this point in the world, and I know I'm not just talking to people over 50, I'm talking under 20. You can't actually believe anything you even see with your own eyes. You just can't. Technology has evolved, and psychological study in warfare has evolved to the fact that you will not believe it even if you see it. I mean, you have to question everything. So,
Yeah, because that used to be a thing where whenever something was like photoshopped,
Mhm.
everyone would always go, well, the only reason why you think it's not photoshopped and you believed it is you're too old to realize how good the technology is. But it's gotten to the point where even young people who are aware how good the technology is still believe this stuff as though it's not been edited.
Well, because they now believe it on based how they feel, not how it looks. If it gives them
Yeah.
a feeling reaction, you'll believe or disbelieve it. So, the warning the main thing we're trying to say, I think, on this point is, don't believe everything you see, hear about anything, not just this. Although I am going to rest comfortably knowing at least this ended COVID. We're not hearing about this at all. We're not hearing about anything. We're not hearing about the president basically saying Bitcoin and all cryptocurrency was going to ruin the climate. How you make that connection is beyond me. That's very important.
Oh, you're probably talking about NFTs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got so much going on that they're sneaking in under here while you're busy with COVID, with Ukraine. You have to realize all of this has been meant to bend your will, to bend you to something. And so,
And as everything too, we're discussing this, the idea that this is all just a smoke screen, or it's just a way to get your attention diverted away from something important.
mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily mean that what's happening isn't real in some capacity or isn't important. The problem is that it could be real, could be important, but they're using that, and then they're taking advantage of it to then push some other stuff through, because people get hyper fixated on this one thing. And another thing too is that it's a situation which you really have no input, so knowing about it does not help as much as you think.
Yeah.
People tend to read the news constantly, trying to find everything up to date about this whole subject, to what benefit?
Mm-hmm.
Now you know, but do you even really know? And then you're finding out most of the stuff you heard was wrong.
Yeah.
But you're not going to change the fact that you believed it because you don't want to feel like you were lied to. So you're still going to pretend that it's real, or
Yeah.
in some capacity.
Well, I could tell you the narrative with both COVID and this that's succeeding quite well is you're not leaving your house. You're not living your life. You're not getting together with friends. You're not going out to parks. You're not participating in sports. People are starting to kind of filter back into that. There's jokes going around social media that, COVID ended, now you can get out, but you can't afford the gas to go anywhere. That's the point. They don't want you getting out. They want you to think you can, but then you're imprisoning yourself. The whole point of this was to imprison yourself and
Yeah.
to keep pushing that narrative. So we just want to make sure that you guys look at everything with a critical eye, even if it supposedly comes from a first-hand account. I have a friend who actually is Ukrainian that has family in Ukraine that sent a first-hand account video of a jet flying over their house, and they were ducking. They said they were being shot with missiles. Well, it turned out it was actually part of the faked video from the Wolf of Ukraine. And so their family sent it out from Ukraine thinking that this was a first-hand account of one of their neighbors. Or so this disinformation is spreading to where they're not even at fault. And a lot of people spreading these things are not trying to do it maliciously. It's the telephone game.
Yeah, because it may seem absurd that your neighbor says that their house is being bombed. It's like, but you live right next to me, I would have noticed that. But in the actuality, it's entirely possible that you go, well, I was gone that day. I guess I didn't realize. And we do hear like explosions sometimes or earthquakes, So it's possible that someone says it happened while you were gone for a short time because the war hasn't fully started yet. So there's only been a few things, and then luckily they missed our area kind of thing. But we saw the airplanes. Stuff like that can happen. It could even be that someone just saw an airplane, squint their eyes, go, I think that's a fighter jet, and their paranoia set in. And then they said to their neighbors, hey, we saw a fighter jet probably trying to deliver some bombs to a major land part fly over our house. And a person goes, our house was being bombed? Like that. It's a phone game.
Well, speaking of that, be aware Cuddles, I think, is about to sneeze. So, and she's taking a bath. If you're hearing weird noises, it's not me, it's the cat. So, but yeah, I think we could talk all day about the false narrative, but just be aware if you're watching us, you're educated anyways, or you're trying to be educated. Just don't trust anything with your naked eye. You can't. Even if you saw it in the sky over your head, you can't trust it. Just that's how good technology is. So,
well, yeah, because like you said, there was like that video game system thing. You tried to explain that to me, and nothing you said makes any sense at all from my understanding of video games. So it's like one of those things where even when they're trying to disprove things, it sounds like they're faking the evidence of disapproval too.
There really are. There's a lot. Because, it's so crazy on all ends. We get the
you said some footage was faked using a game engine, and then that the person who made the video is being sued by the game engine maker for having stolen the technology. Nothing about that sentence makes any sense if you know anything about video games.
Yeah.
And to the point where I'm going, you have to show me this article because I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense from any perspective. Yeah. And she couldn't find the article.
No, because it came up and then it disappeared.
Yeah, because someone on her timeline put that article out there and then it disappeared. But the point is like nothing about it makes sense, but it did to her at the time because she wasn't as familiar, and so it made sense when you're reading it because they explained the way it made sense. Mm-hmm. But I didn't hear it or I didn't read it, and in the way she explained it made no sense whatsoever. So I don't even know if the footage was faked. I don't know what footage it was in the first place. But even if I had seen the footage, I probably would be able to tell just visually because I can tell the differences between CGI because I have a pretty good eye for that. But the point is that she even kind of went, oh, that's a real thing happened. They faked that footage. I'm going, it's possible that footage is real, and they faked the article about it.
The footage.
But the person who wrote the article doesn't know enough about video games, so when they tried to make up a lie about how it was faked, they didn't make a very convincing one. But most people don't really understand how gaming technology works. So they would still buy it and then spread that news, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so like I said, you don't know what the narratives are. You don't know what they're trying to get you to believe. So just be very, very cautious. In fact, we're going to cover a little later. We need to get moving on here, some steps. But you know, the other thing that's been coming up with everyone is prepping.
Yeah.
Even preachers who've never discussed it are suddenly saying, fill all your jars, rice and beans. I'm hearing from everyone, rice and beans. That will do you no good if that's the only thing that you grab. At this point, a sack of rice and beans, you better get some of those Taco Bell hot sauce packets, some salsa, something, because rice and beans every day gets pretty nasty. So
Yeah.
prepping. I prep. It's the thing, and that's why I'm passionate about this subject. But everyone is saying it's too late, or they're asking, is it too late to prep? And I've on social media many times said, if bare minimum right now, and I mean today, get a case of toilet paper, a sack of rice, a sack of beans. If that's all that you can get, if you can't even get that, get an if you're buying a box of macaroni and cheese, buy a second box. Buying a case of top ramen, get a second box. I would never eat those things, but the prices are going up. The case of top ramen was like $8.99. It's usually around $3 or $4. Everything's doubling. Everything's getting higher. So I understand. I live on a very tight budget. I understand living on a budget. But you at this point have to realize, not even if it's World War, not even if it's all fake, our supply lines are being disrupted. These conflicts have definitely, and this is common knowledge at this point, grains are going to be nearly impossible to get next year. We're still seeing everything available now, but they even announced this morning that enjoy your cereal now because there may not be any next year. So people are getting to this and they're starting to panic. And so the thing is, if you start buying now, it's at least there. It's kind of a hedge against inflation. So do the best you can right now. It's never too late to start some kind of prepping. Definitely have water on hand. It just depends on your budget and how committed you are, but you can do something. I've seen people that started from nothing on even, government assistance have been able to come up with a decent stockpile for their kids within 3 to 6 months, just using I'll buy an extra can of Rotel or an extra can of tomatoes. Dollar General, Dollar Tree, I know those have gone up, but if you can find your dollar stores and that's the only way you can budget, dollar of rice, dollar of beans, if you got 10 extra bucks, that can go pretty far. So just keep that in mind. I mean, I can talk about prepping all day, but it's too late if you think you're going to have a year's supply and you're not a millionaire. It is too late for that if you're on a budget. But do the best you can. Think 2 weeks out. When you get 2 weeks out, go to a month. When you get a month, go to 3 months. Replicate that way. Set your own goals. Try to get your family on board in a proactive way, but don't scare your kids. I've been hearing a lot of this from everyone. Little kids are in the house. We're talking not even old enough to watch a PG-13 movie, and you need to keep this in mind. Period. People are so stressed about what's going on in the world that they'll be yelling to their spouse. They're like, I'd be yelling at him, talking very loudly about what's going on with young children running around the house. They're hearing this. They're going to start having nightmares. They're going to have anxiety. They're going to have stress. So
or even worse, they'll start becoming apathetic to everything.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it doesn't matter. We're gonna die. We've heard about news and stuff like that where the kids, instead of becoming scared of the situation, they don't quite understand the situation. They go, well, I guess we're gonna die, and they just kind of accept it.
Adults are doing that too, and that's why they're just trolling social media 24 hours a day, because it's a distraction. So distract yourself with something positive. If you're worried about it being World War III and that we're going to go through nuclear exchange, and if you're really that worried about it, do something about it. No, you're not going to survive a nuclear attack. You're just not. Maybe you own a missile silo. Okay. Yeah. But the rest of us, if that happens, you need to live until then. And
well, that's another thing about prepping too. Too many people get kind of crazy about prepping and go, you got prepped for the most extreme situations. Mm-hmm. That really isn't realistic for most people to be able to prep that greatly, but also is kind of unrealistic that you would survive for those situations. That's That's living on a prayer, going, I'm going to prepare to survive the worst events
Yeah.
possible. If you survive those events to such a degree,
Well, you really want to.
yeah. Not only that, do you really want to survive a nuclear holocaust? But then also, do you want to? Do you even think that if you had survived that you're not going to be able to survive what comes next? Like if
Yeah.
you're so lucky that your entire state was bombed and you survived, that you're just not going to find like tons of supplies, just by pure luck.
Yeah.
Like preparations should be the things that are more manageable.
Hmm.
Like even just looking at the past few years, you know that things are going to happen in slow steps. Mandates are going to force certain ways of shopping. We know that the hours of like Walmart, for instance, have shortened. They're no longer 24 hours. But it's the common steps that you can kind of work around, so you know that you can just prepare for those things. You take the next step, so you know that like right now the hour is only such and such, but they might shorten those hours. So you just need to prepare for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you just keep doing it for everything. We know that
Realistic things. You got the obvious gas prices going up. So, if you're on a budget, plan to do all your shopping in one trip on, one, don't go to Dollar Tree every day or something. So, steps
yeah,
like that. Your electric bills, all your bills are going to start going up. People go, no, no, that's not true. I talked to all my utilities. Even the water bill is going to go up, and I'll tell you why. The cost of those filters to your county, the treatment, the giant kegs of bleach and whatever they get have to be transported by fuel.
yeah,
So everything is going to go up. So plan accordingly. If the only thing you can prep is, of course, food is number one. Secondary should be trying to save a little bit of, and not in a bank, but a little bit of hedge against job loss. That's what I always look at
yeah,
with prepping is, what if everyone loses their income? What if we can't pay the bills? That's a little more realistic for most people right now than, there's a solar flare and all the technology is going to be taken out and all that. I mean, I'm not saying that isn't possible, but practically, being practical about it. So I don't believe it's too late. I think it's too late if you're trying to set a goal of being self sufficient in the next week and living completely off the grid and
yeah,
having 2 year food supply. That's not going to happen. But what you can do today, even on food stamps, you can buy seeds. What you can do today is buy one packet of tomatoes. Now, those have gone up too. I had seed shock today. I went to go buy a packet of cilantro seeds. They were $4.99. They're always $1.99 or less, and these were organic, and I always get organic. So I was a little shocked. So might be a little more expensive now, but you can get a packet of tomato seeds. You can get a one packet of corn. Something I recommend, honestly, tomato seeds, because you could actually grow up, even if you're in the middle of the city, New York City, you can grow one pot of tomatoes in your house. I used to do it in the winter all the time. Um, that is something that can flavor up your rice and beans. So just start thinking of steps like that, and
yeah,
you're going to be ahead of the game versus somebody who panics when it starts to get bad. And that's where I'm not going to take credit for this. My friend Steve Smith came up with this analogy, and I think it's the best I've ever heard. Um, People ask if they should join or start a prepping group. They don't realize they already have one. You're going to go, what? You're already in one. I'll tell you how. This, all credit goes to him, but this is genius. So if you were to start a group, let's say, he says, who are the people that you like to have dinner with? That's your inner group. These are the people that if all the electricity was shut off today and there was no gas, you could still, if you were able to, call them up and say, hey, I need something, or they need something. They'd be there for you. That's your inner group. That's your family. That's the people you can trust. Your second layer, your outer circle, is going to be your extended family type people. Someone you see once a year at a family reunion or a big birthday party or your anniversary, whatever. They're still on your list, but they're not going to be someone that you share so much your supplies with and things like that. You're very, and everyone's like, no, I need to get to know my plumbers and mechanics and all this. Like, they think that's number one. That's really your outer circle. That would be your acquaintances with skills. You need to know them. You need to have a good relationship with them, but they're going to have their own family, their own close knit people. You'll be able to call on them if you have 5 or 6 people that are already very close to you, odds are they know a mechanic or they know an electrician. So if you can just get a close core group of people around you, and these are people that you can stand being with all the time, you like your card buddies, you invite them over for barbecue every weekend. These are people you like being with. Not everyone likes being with their family. So that's kind of already your preppers group. These are, you don't have to go out and start one or join one. You already have one set up. Just get to know these people. Think about it in that way. It really opened my eyes because honestly, I have in my group, I could eat with them every night. I could hang out with them all the time, more than I could my family. So that really, it really spoke to me when he said that. So start thinking in that way too, and that brings up really, I think what we were saying earlier, that you've got to get out there, you've got to do things. It's so stressful, and we've been locked up for so long. We're losing touch with humanity, and that's very unhealthy. So much extreme anxiety, and I'm hearing people that have become dysfunctional because, and their kids have become dysfunctional because of anxiety. This
Yeah.
is why you have to get out and do things.
And I think another thing too is when people are prepping, they think that you're prepping for a total lockdown. You have to, like, living underground type stuff. Like,
Yeah.
literally, you built a shelter underground. You have to live there for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people think you have to do for prepping, which is why so many people think it's too late.
Yeah.
But we've seen with the lockdowns, it's like it being able to get supplies and all that is never going to be completely shut off, at least not yet anyways, but it will become harder over time, and over time will get even harder than that. So right now it's not too late. It may be eventually, but right now it's only slightly harder than it used to be, and it might get harder over time, but it's not too late. You know, we see with the lockdowns, like, just because there's lockdowns doesn't mean you can't leave your house.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, just because they're making mandates and then people aren't allowed to go shopping in certain places because they don't have a certain thing or whatnot, doesn't mean that every store is enforcing that. We've seen that a lot of people are very lenient. There's still places you can go, things you can get, times that you can leave the house. They're trying. The lockdowns are meant to make people think that the end. It's the end of everything. You're stuck forever. But the truth is, you haven't been cut off from everything yet, and it will get harder. Which is why you should start preparing soon. But you don't have to go so overboard as to think that you have to prepare for complete, being completely cut off from society. It's very likely that that's not going to happen anytime soon, at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
It could, but right now that's just not feasible to prepare for. It's too hard to really even figure out how to prepare for that in a way, because you can't really prepare for everything that could happen.
You can't. And speaking of that, most of us have gotten used to, because of the pandemic, shopping online and Amazon and things like that, because it's handy. Be aware, Amazon's going to start going up. There's going to start being delays. You need to get to know, again, get out of your house and get to know your local shops.
Yeah.
Start buying things locally, not just because it supports your neighbors and friends. Even if it's Walmart, you're like, as an evil corporation, but your neighbors work there. That's their paycheck. So if you are shopping local, you're supporting your local friends, even if it's at an evil corporation. But the other thing is, what you order at Amazon, you may not get. This happens a lot, or it's out of stock and you're waiting on it and waiting on it. Get back into the habit of going out and getting things. Get to know your neighbors, get to know people that in your circle of friends that maybe are farmers, or even if they just have little hobby herb gardens. Get to know people, get to know resources. That's what we need to do to survive this. It's not that hunker down in the bunker and eat bunker stew. It's getting back to, I hate to say the hippie movement, but we need to do the guitars and bonfires and barbecues. And because when you come together like that, you share resources.
Yeah.
When we were in Germany and we went into Russia when I was a kid, during all this communism, the reason people survived was you'd have a group of people in a neighborhood get together, or different believers. One might have a loaf of bread, one might have some meat, one might have an egg, but you could make a complete meal when everyone got together. When you share resources, it doesn't cost as much. And you're not going to know what those resources are if you don't now start getting out and meeting people and getting to know, you may have a best friend that you talk to every day on Facebook, or even by phone or text, but they know nothing about your situation. You don't know if they can cook. You may not even know if they have a tomato hobby or raise chickens. You need to start getting to know these things, really getting to know people, because
Yeah.
it's key to survival.
Well, but this is, just to be clear, this is separate from a commune type situation.
Yes, yes.
This
No
isn't the same
commune.
thing.
Yeah,
This is, people who are self sufficient helping cover the basis of other people who are self sufficient.
right, yeah.
Because a commune is everybody's pooling their stuff together. So no one's self sufficient. They are dependent on each other. Which,
Commune comes from communism. Or,
yeah.
it's the same base word
Well, I think commune and then turned
to
yeah.
communism, yeah.
But the point is the major difference is that everyone's together at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how they say about work spouses. When you're married to someone you have to work with all the time.
Yeah.
Imagine that, but you have to live with somebody that you're working with all the time. And it's like it's not going to work out. But if you're friends who take care of themselves first and then help you second, you're less likely to annoy each other and to turn on each other. You know.
I would say the principles the country were founded on worked fine. That was individual rights, individual freedom, individual responsibility. So if we
because
have
you
that,
pool
you'll be fine.
if you each bring food to a potluck, everyone's happy. If you then pool all your resources for food together and then have to trust that no one's going to take more than their share, suddenly there's an issue. You see the difference?
Yeah.
Because then someone has to be in charge of food, make sure no one steals that food. But you got to trust that person. And that person now has higher power than anyone else in the community because they hold the keys to the food. You see how this all falls apart so quickly. But a lot of prepping is how to start a commune. And it's like that's the worst thing you can do. You gotta be self-sufficient with other self-sufficient friends who can cover bases if you, let's say, something that you were self-sufficient in before suddenly failed. You know?
Yeah.
Because there's another thing too.
Gardeners fail.
Yeah, if you're in a commune, everybody's sharing the same stuff, which means it fails for everybody. If everybody's self-sufficient, then that thing fails. Somebody else can pick up the slack until you get it fixed. Mm-hmm. That's another good reason why you shouldn't be in a commune.
Right, yeah, and that's why you should start doing something today, because if you don't start trying to grow food or things like that, you aren't going to learn by failing, and you're going to learn by failing too late.
Yeah.
We when we moved here, I think 5 or 6 years ago, we'd always intended to be off grid and self sufficient, and so we kind of built the property around that. But so many different things failed at so many different times that it takes, and anyone that's done it will tell you this, it takes 5 to 6 years minimum to get things in a rhythm and get to where you're going to be more self-sufficient and actually getting some kind of crop every year from what you plant. I mean, you can always expect 50% failure even if you're the best gardener out there. And you need to learn to do this without artificial amendments like fertilizers and things, because those are going to be very hard to find and cost prohibitive. So, that's where we're at. I mean, it's wars, rumors of wars. If there's no better definition, I don't know, because there's a lot of rumors. We don't know what's really true. We can look at what we know to be true. We know those gas prices are high. We know food prices are getting high. Everything is getting higher faster than anyone thought it would. We can focus on what we actually do know and what we can do about it. Watching news all day and being on social media all day doesn't change your life. It doesn't change what you can do about whether you're going to eat tomorrow or not. So...
Because honestly, like, most people probably reading news because they're afraid of what could affect them. Mm-hmm. But really the thing is that, let's say you're reading news because even though the war going on outside of the country isn't really affecting you, you're afraid that eventually could. You'd be going, I read news because if they send a nuke our way, I want to know. It's like, but in actuality, you don't. Most people who've gone through war going, I wish I didn't know ahead of time. It was a surprise. Like, if you know you're going to get shot in the head, it's a lot worse than if you get shot from behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's really no benefit to reading all this news because it's happening somewhere else. I know it sounds really bad, but there's no input you can bring that would help the situation. It's only going to harm you, and because you're not absolutely certain of exactly what is happening, any input you could do would not be, it would be too ignorant to assume that you would know enough to input anything that could be helpful. It instead could actually be harmful. It's like,
Okay,
like we
stop
said
that.
earlier, we don't know the situation, but too
Stop
many
that.
people think they know the situation well enough that they're doing things that can actually be hurting rather than helping. The people of Russia, at the very least, like the people aren't part of the government, but actually are just regular everyday citizens, are suffering more because of people trying to fight this war they don't understand than the actual government of Russia is. They're not being
Mm.
affected as much as the people, you know?
Well, we were discussing in the car the issue here. I think a lot of people might be zoning out on news and social media because they feel like they can't do anything with
Yeah.
what has happened recently in our country. The thing is, because we're so distracted, we have elections coming up and things like that. We're not writing our senators, we're not calling our governor.
Yeah.
Every one of us, not that it's actually a good idea, but it's just a suggestion someone made. It's economically a bad idea. But you could be calling your governors and say, can you waive the gas tax for a short time? Can we, people are not being proactive because we feel like our voices won't really be heard, that all elections are stolen, even local government elections. Everyone feels powerless. You have to take back that power, and that starts in your own life, in your own home. You can't, I mean, yeah, we can't go out and change, we try, but you can't go out and change the world tomorrow and end this conflict and all this. But we can keep our kids safe. We can take care of our animals. We can keep our kids out of this constant stress of war. I grew up under, my generation grew up under the same thing. It was still Russia, Russia, Russia. It was still nuclear war. It was going to get us anytime. And I understand things are incredibly different right now. They really are. But it was still some of the same threats. And I know how it affected my friends. I know how it affected me. When we got together, of course, kids don't do slumber parties anymore. They don't spend time together. They have play dates, which get canceled all the time because of COVID. But when they
Well,
do get
also
together
parents,
and parents,
yeah.
but when they do get together, I promise they're talking about these things that are scaring them.
Yeah.
And we used to,
And they're probably too scared to talk to their own parents about it, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, because their parents are just too busy arguing and yelling about the news and what's going on. So
Yeah.
keep
That's
that in
probably why we've also
consideration.
keep having issues with kids being completely different politically to their parents, to the point at
Hmm.
which the parents never even realize that their kids hate them because they've been too scared to even talk politics around their parents because they've seen how well, not violent, but how aggravated they get over politics.
Yeah.
Go, I don't want to talk about politics with my family, but politics is important, so we're going to research our own, but then not bring that up to our parents because we don't want them to get aggravated more.
Yeah.
And then they end up going to resources to find the political news that end up, messing with their.
I'm gonna have to move her because she's obsessively bathing herself. She just won't stop fidgeting and twitching, and I'm sure the microphone is picking it up.
Yeah. But so these kids are getting their news from sources that are trying to manipulate them, knowing that they're too young and naive to catch the manipulation because they're not doing it with their parents who've wisened up to this stuff. If the parents even have, which is
Well,
another
and just don't
issue.
forget how helpless you might feel with our current political climate. You're not a hopefully you're not a child, and they are even more hopeless because they're 100% dependent on their safety is 100% dependent on other people, which you may feel the same way. Like my government has to protect me. You're old enough to take some steps yourself to do what you can to protect your family and to protect your loved ones, and a lot of she's now on Gabe. A lot of she's not going to quit. A lot of preparedness really is a mindset, and it's spiritual preparedness.
Yeah.
That really is where it is at this point. If you don't have that mental fortitude, your faith, your family is in the same has the same fortitude, same beliefs. You don't have to have the same religious beliefs, but if you firmly believe that you can make it together, you need to pull together, and you have those strong family ties, that's more important right now than food. Food can be gotten, food can be grown, you can barter. there's things you can do, but if you don't have strong people around you, if you don't have people to pull you out of the dumps when you're so depressed you can't get off the couch, that's real survival. We've survived some crap. I mean, really
Yeah.
have. I mean, believe me, books need to be written, and I've got to get my butt in gear. But I've I've personally survived just about everything life can throw at you, just about. And
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, you can't prepare for it. You can never prep for all of these things. You can't prep for much of any of it. Can you prep for cancer, that stage 4 cancer you didn't know about, and suddenly you're diagnosed tomorrow? You could prep for catastrophic job loss, but most people don't think about it because it's usually a shock when it happens.
Yeah.
You know, nerve tumors, tornadoes, these things you can't plan for to a full extent. So,
Yeah.
and I'm
The
not
the
saying
truth is
quit,
you can't
you know,
outwardly prepare for these
but you
things.
can mentally and emotionally prepare.
Yeah, there's been a lot of issues too with people becoming too anxious because they don't understand how to deal with the stress of all this stuff because they've never had to really focus on it. That's why everyone's always going off about their safe spaces because they're like they don't know how to deal with their own emotions, so they want other people to deal with their emotions for them. That's why they need those safe spaces, so they don't have to confront their emotions, even if they offload them to somebody else by doing it that way. You know, because people aren't able to prepare themselves. And
But those safe spaces are going to go completely bye bye
yeah,
when everything in society gets nuts. They're going to go, I don't care about your feelings. I got to go find a way to get to work because I can't spend $50 for gas today. They're not
yeah.
going to care, you know. So
But
it's
but
just life.
but you know another thing too I was gonna say is about the news is that people are so focused on the news because they're trying to see how the world is affecting them that they're too busy with that to affect their own world, and so because of that they're just having crises in their own life
Hmm.
that they're ignoring to go into because they're just constantly searching all these news websites for things that aren't going to affect them, but then by ignoring everything else in their life they are affecting their life negatively.
Yeah.
And it's like like with my sister, I saw her for years now had been just constantly on her phone ignoring everything in her life to the point of aggravating everybody. They're like, please just put the phone down, we're trying to watch this movie, put the phone down, your baby is crying. And now dad's doing the same thing where he's constantly on his phone
Hmm.
and he's ignoring things. It's like this is the only time that he has off from work that he can hang out and he's on his phone, something he can do during work, you know. And so it's an addictive substances, and most people think that uppers are the most addictive things ever, and if it feels good it's going to be the most addictive. The truth is the opposite.
Hmm.
Downers are the most addictive substances on earth.
Bad news sells. I mean,
Yeah, if something is depressing it's going to be more addicting than if it makes you happy.
no, you think about it. I mean, if you're those super happy moments never feel as good.
They're fleeting.
Yeah.
You always say that happy stuff is fleeting
Yeah.
because it is.
But you can completely waller in your misery for weeks, and you can get your
Yeah.
friends to come along with you, and my friends won't, I promise you. But, you know, and sometimes and this is what we face right now. It's a mindset because, and I've seen friends do this, and I'm glad. Thank you to my friends that kick me in the pants if I start to waller, because that's what you need. But I do see friends on social media that I know that they have a bad day every day. And the thing is, they have friends that bring them soup and watch their kids and watch their dog and do their laundry. And I do get jealous sometimes. I've had surgery and I've had patients an hour later on the phone, and I've done, you know, and I've had help from like Gabe, but my husband's usually working. I didn't get soup. I didn't get people washing my dog. No one came over, you know, and that's okay. I'm not complaining. I'm saying, but you have to get to the point where it does feel good to waller. I mean, it just feels good
Yeah.
to sit there and go, oh, I'm having a bad day. I feel terrible. Everybody surround me and pamper me and give
Yeah,
me
because
gifts. It feels good.
it's such a common issue. And everyone's like, I don't understand how these people could be eternal victims throughout their whole life until these people ask that question, become eternal victims for their whole life.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy for someone to, because the happy moments are fleeting. 'Cause they don't last forever. But the problems that happen to you, they stick around, And it comes back to the fact that people don't understand how to deal with their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's stuck in them. You don't know how to deal with it. You don't know how to get rid of it. You don't know how to accept it. It's just that moment, that horrible moment, is stuck in them forever, and you don't know what to do with it. And so then they they just wallow in it forever. And the thing is over time it becomes addicting because it's all they ever really known,
Mm-hmm.
and the happy moments don't stick around, so the happy moments aren't as addicting. And so then it's also another thing too that they find joy in explaining their issues to other people who then are understanding and are like, don't worry, we're here for you. And like that sounds good on the outside until you realize that it's not actually helping you in any way
Mm-hmm.
deal with this situation. It's not making it go away. It's a fleeting happy moment of someone said that, oh, don't worry, I'm here for you. But the real issue with that is that you don't realize is that it's not a good thing when someone says I'm here for you. It's a bad thing because you put your issues onto someone else. You made someone else's day more miserable than it should have been because of your own misery that you are refusing to fix. You know for a fact that no matter what they say, you're going to come right back tomorrow and say, "I those issues are still there."
Yeah.
But you keep bringing it onto other people, and they're going to constantly going. I understand, and they're going to become more apathetic. So the happy ones could become even more fleeting because no one's going to care anymore because you never.
Mm.
Oh.
It's. Oh, my husband's calling in. I hope it's not important. Maybe he was listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, be really aware, and this is going to sound cruel. It's true that misery loves company. So, one of the main reasons I stopped going to church, and if you go to church, you have to admit this happens. You walk in on a Sunday morning or Saturday, whatever it is, and you're going to hear, oh, my arthritis, pray for me. Oh, my sciatica, my bladder issues, my poop pills. I'm on this prescription. I'm on that prescription. You need to try this. Misery loves company, and it never stops. The hard thing that you're going to hear, and this sucks, happiness is a choice. That sounds really cruel. You have to fight for your happiness. You have to work for your happiness. You have to make decisions for your happiness, and that's key to survival.
You have to be selfless for your happiness too.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, and we're getting close to an hour anyways, so
Yeah.
we need to wrap it up, and that was kind of the end of the list anyways, but I'm begging you, I can't beg any harder. Put down your phones. Limit your time to search the news. Don't do it right before you go to bed. And
Yeah, because they always say don't go to bed angry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the news makes you angry.
Yeah, don't let the sun go down on your wrath.
Yeah, you're gonna have nightmares about the news because it's the last thing you saw. It's not healthy in any way. It's gonna be bad for your heart.
Yeah, and it increases your anxiety and it makes it hard to sleep. Everyone's got insomnia right now, but they won't turn off everything. Force yourself to do something that you enjoy at least once a day, even if it's 5 minutes. Schedule it in. I have to schedule it in. But, read the Bible, read a good book, listen to music, drink a glass of wine, but without watching TV, without being on social media, no electronics. This is so key because it's become such an addiction. I mean, that could be a whole show of itself, but it is truly the most addictive. It's like food addiction. You can't escape food, you have to eat it to live. The thing is, we can escape social media. It feels like in news, it feels like something we need to live. I don't want to miss out. I might not know that this news has happened. You'll know. If it's that bad, you will know. You'll get phone calls, you'll get texts, you'll see it. I'm not saying bury your head in the sand, but I'm saying for your mental well being, your kids' mental well being, your health very much depends on toning this down. You could still do it. But pick a time. Say, if you're excessive and you really got, maybe your work depends on it, and mine does, and people buy and sell on eBay and social media. I get it, but you could limit yourself to 3 times a day, a half an hour or 10 minutes. Just check real quick. And the problem with checking is you may spend the next 4 hours because you get sucked in, and that's what social media and news is supposed to do. So it's going to take self-discipline, but the hours wasted really add up. If you're doing, and most people don't do just 3 hours on social media a day, it's much more. Think about what you could have accomplished in all those hours within a week. So just keep that in mind. We didn't want to talk so much about World War III as an actual political issue, but your response, because you can't
Yeah.
change the world around you, but you can change how you respond, and that's the most important thing going forward.
Yeah, like I said earlier, we don't know what's going on. You probably don't know. There's probably someone who knows more than us, but still doesn't know everything.
Yeah.
No, there's no one on Earth who knows everything going on in this war. No one knows the true picture of it. And so the important thing is to make sure that you are making your own life, as secure as you can, as good as you can. Stop worrying about what's happening on the other side of the earth because it's not directly affecting you, not yet at least.
Mm-hmm.
And when it does, it still would be something that'd be obvious even if you weren't reading news and you could still work with.
Yeah, like you noticed the gas prices. You didn't need social
Yeah,
media to tell you that. You
yeah,
will notice these things. And it is, people want to be ahead of the game, especially preppers. You always want to be ahead of the game. I want to know the news ahead so I can and do this. But set goals. Try to set goals in your life when it comes to anything. We're going into difficult and different times, and those who've been through it, if you'll notice the people who went through depression, the few that are left are kind of panicking right now. They know the signs are up on the wall, and talk to them, get some of the hints, talk to them about their experience, learn the lessons from the people that have been there.
yeah.
You
Because
know,
that's another good point too. Learning about what's going to happen next isn't actually going to change anything because the principles of how you prep are going to work regardless of what happens next.
mm-hmm.
These people who lived through all these different times of turmoil are going, yeah, these things are going to get bad. We're seeing all the signs. You may not have lived through the same things as they have, but if you're prepping the same way they are, then it's very likely that whatever does happen, you have been prepared for, even
Mm-hmm.
if only a little bit. But
Yeah.
at least you'd be ahead of the game at the very least. Nothing is gonna nothing's gonna happen in a way you could not have prepared for unless it's life ending. Like
Yeah.
you can prepare for, say, a the government just falls apart and it's all like a Mad Max type of situation, because you prepared food, you prepared the garden, you prepared uh, friends who can help you out, you probably prepared defenses. So then, what happens if the government instead stays in place, but then puts
Takes everything away.
yeah, takes everything away or takes over in a more authoritative way? Well, you're prepared because you got all the same things anyways. You got the food, you got the people, you got the defenses.
Mm-hmm.
It works for either situation. The only thing it doesn't work for is, say, if you were blown up by a nuke, at which point you have to worry about preparing because you're not surviving that.
Yeah.
So,
Work with what is actually survivable.
yeah, preparing at all is still preparing. You don't have to prepare for a very specific situation unless you're thinking it'd be a grid down situation, you need a generator. But it doesn't matter then if it isn't grid down situation because you have a generator just in case.
Yeah.
You
You might
stuff
not be
like
able to
that.
afford the gas in it anyways.
Yeah.
So, we don't want to discourage you. We don't want to announce, hey, yeah, I got to cut my hair. You don't want to announce it's World War III and we're all doomed. We just wanted to, let you guys know we're in this with you. Don't trust what you're seeing. Don't trust what you're hearing. Do the research yourself. But think about your kids. Think it's not just your kids, but a lot of us have extended older folks in our life. They are really stressed to the hilt. They've been locked up for 2 years, and now this has been dumped. They've seen it before. Spend some time with them. Definitely do everything that you can to spend time with your family and to ease their discomfort and their anxiety. You're the only one that can.
Yeah.
There is no amount of medicine, there's no amount of feel good things you can watch and affirmations. That's the same kind of bomb, BLAM, as that your family and friends would be. So get closer to your friends and family, and
Well,
definitely closer to God.
not only that, but some people are so addicted to the news. It's very likely there's families where every single person in that family is on their phone constantly looking at the same news as the rest of their family.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's reading the same stuff. They could read it out loud together even. That would be the thing. But honestly, the news is such a thing where nowadays people think politics and news is something everybody has to be in, but not everybody is capable of handling this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You could be reading the news and it's affecting you negatively, very deeply. And if that is true, then you're not capable of handling reading the news all the time, which means you need to get away from it because it's affecting you negatively. And there's for sure someone else in your family who's reading the news too, so that you don't have to do it, because if it is important, they would bring it up to you.
Yeah, there's always those people that don't. I'm one of them. I can just go, this happened today and that happened today, and it doesn't negatively affect me so much as it does other people. And that sounds, calloused, but I am a little calloused.
Yeah.
And it's so
I'm the same way. It's like I can read the news and it doesn't affect me so deeply that I am in absolute turmoil for the rest of the day or anything like that.
Yeah.
But even then, there are some limits where like things are like, oh, that's just that ruined my whole day. It's like even someone as like as strong skinned as us or as thick spined as us, you can still be affected negatively by the news because it's so bad. There's no way that the average person is going to be able to handle this without wanting to put a gun to their head,
Yeah.
And you gotta realize that for your own safety and the safety of your family.
Yeah, tone it down. I mean, like I said, someone will tell you if it's that important. So, it's like I said, we're heading towards difficult times. You got to start thinking about this, and you either have to decompress and pull yourself away from all of this negativity. And it's like, ooh, negative, positive, negative, positive. It's not that so much as this will affect you. I don't care who you are, because we just went through the quote pandemic and everything they did to us there. You add this on top of that, and it's more than most people can handle. Someone said the other day the verse, and I'd have to look it up. We'll put it down in the notes. It talks, I believe it's in Matthew, about the hearts, or Revelation, hearts failing for fear of what's coming on the earth. Everyone has assumed that was an asteroid or something so catastrophic. It really could be something like this, because I'm hearing people they're literally having mental emotional breakdowns leading to extreme high blood pressure. This is children. I mean, this is not just adults. So for your own sake, for the sake of your kids, your parents, your grandparents, just tone it down. Don't talk about it when you're together. Make a pact that we're going to talk about memories, happy times. We're going to play cards, whatever you have to do, but just kind of tone back on this high stress stuff. That's why I was saying there's no medication in some of these cases. You have to learn how to handle this. You just do, and so that's all we can do to encourage you, and obviously we've gone way over time. We've really tried to keep it under an hour. We may end up splitting this up, but we love you guys. Feedback for sure. We still love comments if we're taking a little bit of time to get to them. We're just having technological issues. We're not necessarily getting notifications from YouTube. When we go on there, we're not seeing them. So we are replying as we can see them. So you can contact us through email as well. All that information should be on there.
Yeah, but sometimes we just get busy too. Like today, we were hoping to film this at like 6 in the afternoon. We got way too busy.
Yeah, because the animals needed feed, and then we have to take everything in one trip. So, anyways, you guys have a good night. We'll be back. If you have some suggestions for subjects, please let us know. Definitely, like I said, Parler, YouTube. If you can't leave a comment, you can certainly reach me through my website, which is listed, and there's email there. So reach out, and you guys have a good night.
Bye.